Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, let's learn about British food. Controversial opinion, okay? Sunday roast, fish and chips, made well, are some of my favorite foods of any food. All right. And if you put those against other countries' national dishes, I think British food, those dishes beat a lot of them for me. Okay. So I know I'm going against the grain here. It's kind of a meme at this point. Like British food, they'll show you a picture of soggy bread with beans on top. Yeah, any country's food, if you make it poorly, it's not going to be great. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say some of the classic British foods made well are my favorite foods. So I said it.
British food.
There you go. Disagree if you want to. Let's go.
British food is awful. We conquered the world for spices and don't use any of them, and we still eat like Germans are flying overhead. These are all jokes us Brits are used to seeing in the comments section across the entire internet. But is there any truth in it? Welcome into this deep dive into the misunderstood world of British cuisine, where the puddings are black and the beans are baked and served for breakfast again. I'm going to be going through the history of British...
I love beans, but I do hear that the classic like British beans on toast is not like the beans I'm used to. I'm used to barbecue style beans and I love them. But I think the British classic beans that you'd use on beans on toast has a kind of tomato sauce with it. I've never tried it, but it doesn't sound as appetizing, you know?
British food.
Yep.
Stopping now and then to address and maybe even taste some notable dishes, and if needed, defend them like they're a football team I don't play for. So as we're about to slice through the stereotypes and serve up the truth, it's clear to everyone right now that British cuisine's reputation is in the bin.
How do you get such a good green screen? I really would love to learn that. I have a green screen that I bought. I have 2 of them, but they're never this crisp.
It's clear to everyone right now that British cuisine's reputation is in the bin. But let's see if we can change that by learning a little more about the good grub of the Great British Isles. Right, let's set the stage here. Before the Romans crashed the party in 43 AD, British dining was quite a simple affair. If you could grow it, hunt it, or forage it, it was dinner. We're talking cereals, grains, and the kind of meat and fish that didn't just walk onto your plate, but demanded a good chase in the woods with the hope that you wouldn't get mauled to death in the process. The locals thrived on a catch or grow your own menu, featuring things like nettle soup, berries, and maybe even squirrel, and whatever fish could be wrangled from the rivers without getting yourself drowned.
What are nettles?
Vegetables like onions and cabbages were the unsung heroes, turning a bland stew into something kind of edible, while wild herbs like thyme and mint were the ancient Brits' answer to flavour. Barley was already being fermented into ale because water would get you killed, and on special occasions even mead made an appearance, which means ancient Brits took one look at bees and thought, I want to eat that thing's spit. It's a pretty dreary affair so far.
Oh, honey. All right. I don't know if this is a popular or unpopular opinion, but the best onion for me, almost every time, is a raw white onion. I love it way more than caramelized onions. Red onions are good, but I can't really think of a dish or a meal where I would prefer red onions over white onions. A raw white onion, whenever they're applied, delicious.
Ancient Britain, but as with most food on this little island, it's made better by foreigners. When the Romans arrived, they didn't just bring legions, they brought...
That is the case for every food, okay? People say, you know, a hamburger is not an American food because Hamburg, Germany, Hamburg steak. Pet peeve. Answer this question, please. What makes a food okay to be called a country's food? I'm not joking. I need to hear your opinion here. How is a hamburger not an American food? All right. Is it because so Hamburg, Germany had the Hamburg steak, where it was basically a hamburger in different fashion, and then Americans have it on a classic bun with the hamburger and then cheese sometimes, tomato, lettuce, onions. And so if that's not an American food, what makes other countries' food their food? Tell me now.
Gooms, grapes, cherries, and fancy herbs start popping up faster than you can.
Because, like, I'll use Britain's food, fish and chips, right? Fish and chips is a British food, and no one will argue that. But okay, that's fish with batter fried with potatoes that are fried, right? Well, fish and potatoes have been eaten forever, okay? So what makes fish and chips a British food, whereas a hamburger isn't an American food? Tell me right now, okay?
Say hail.
I'm not defensive. I am a little.
Grapes, cherries, and fancy herbs start popping up faster than you can say Hail Caesar. The Romans were kind of the original food influencers, if you will, introducing ancient Brits to the exotic world of things like black pudding. Black pudding is a combination of suet, fat, grain or cereal, onion, seasoning, and cow or pig's blood.
I thought suet is fat.
All stuffed into a natural casing, usually one of the aforementioned animals' intestines. Here we run into one of the earliest examples of gross British food. Black pudding, which was first recorded in the 5th century, is one of many things that us Brits still eat today that other countries may consider gross.
I'd love to try
it.
it.
Sausage,
Never
essentially.
have.
Ancient Britons had to use every part of the animal, and the blood is as good as any. Personally, I like it. It's incredibly rich, and while I'm not making it a regular feature of my breakfasts, you can bet that if I'm having a full English breakfast, it's making an appearance.
This might sound gross, but has anyone ever had a cut in their lifetime and they kind of, to try and stop it, they go like this, and then you taste it, okay? I'm not weird. And I imagine that's how black pudding would taste. A sort of irony sausage.
And with that, we welcome the next guests to the British Isles, the Vikings. Not to be outdone, the Vikings later sailed in with their very own culinary tactics. Big, burly men with even bigger appetites, teaching the Brits the fine art of not just bathing, but catching fish and smoking and drying it to perfection. Thanks to them, this smoked fish remains a cherished dish in many British households. And while our produce is usually pretty bad, the one thing I think British food stands up well is dairy. We have fantastic cheese, milk and butter.
Cheddar.
British cows, sheep and goats practically entered food folklore, becoming the unsung heroes of the British breakfast table. And if you haven't had the pleasure to try our cheese, butter or milk from Britain's...
Look at that grass, though. I think this is a fake picture because no grass is that good, and I love grass. And I want to believe this is real, but I can't. That's got to be fake. It's too perfect.
Grass-fed pastures. It's bloody gorgeous, and while you might not have heard of it, it is the envy of many parts of the world. Each wave of invasions left its mark on the UK, like gravy stains on a white t-shirt. From Roman vineyards to Viking smokehouses, Britain's menu started to evolve, from survival snacks to a buffet of bizarre but beloved dishes. And things just keep getting better, because up next are the Normans. The Normans kicked things off in 1066, not just conquering lands,
Hastings.
but appetites, annoyingly introducing French zest into English diets. I'm not usually one to give the French any compliments, but the noble tables saw meats dressed up in fruity sauces and spices, and overall, it was a good thing. They also helped popularise pork pies, a dish dating back to the 14th century, which became a staple due to its ability to preserve meat for longer periods, which was essential for those long Norman hunting trips. Then came the monks, who were not just praying, but playing with food flavours. They turned simple gardens into herb havens and started brewing beer commercially, because even holy men need a pint now and then. The peasants, on the other hand, weren't quite dining in such divine decadence yet. Their fare was still more about survival, really. Stewing whatever they could get into a pottage pot and pairing it with the ever-reliable barley bread, usually still washed down with ale because, well, water was still a bit of a gamble. Jump forward a few hundred years and we welcome in the Tudors with their New World novelties. Potatoes, tomatoes, and even turkeys begin to strut around English soil. Potatoes in particular quickly became a dietary staple, fundamentally altering British cuisine.
I heard potatoes weren't that... It might have been a video on Germany that I watched. But regardless of who it was, there's a story that potatoes didn't really catch on until more wealthy, noble, upper people class started like saying how much of a delicacy it was, and then a lot of people not in that wealth class suddenly wanted to try it a lot, right? Kind of like how fashion works a lot of the time. I'm not a fashionable person. I wear sweatshirts and t-shirts 99.9% of the time, but I found that interesting because potatoes are delicious, but it needed a bit of nudging to get it popular.
Sugar and spices start flowing more freely, especially
nice.
at the tables of the sweet-toothed wealthy, making pastries and desserts more elaborate than Henry VIII's body count. The Tudor era also saw the rise of a ploughman's lunch. It wasn't called that yet, but it's a simple, rustic meal that combined bread, cheese, and pickles, and sometimes some cold meats. Essentially, a working man's picnic. While it did become more formally recognised and marketed later, its roots trace back to this era. Spices such as pepper, cinnamon and cloves began to permeate British cuisine through colonial trade routes, significantly altering the flavour profiles of most British food. Treacle tart, which was first mentioned in the 19th century, its origins to this influx of sugar, becoming a quintessential British dessert. Welsh rarebit.
What is a treacle? Uncrystallized syrup produced as a byproduct of refining sugar cane. Okay. Okay. All right.
Also emerged during this time to say British dessert. Welsh rarebit also emerged during this time. It's essentially a posh cheese on toast that became a popular snack. Its origins trace back to the 18th century, where it was a comforting and quick meal for the working class. By the time we get to Queen Victoria, railways were revolutionising food transport, making it possible to enjoy Scottish salmon or Cornish cream at the same speed as a bad internet meme spreading. Game meats like venison and pheasant become symbols of social status and were featured prominently in feasts and banquets. And with the rise of the middle class, there was a new demand for richer, more varied diets. This included the introduction of French cuisine techniques and foods such as jelly and custard, which still remain a classic flavour combo to this day. Beef Wellington also became...
Come again?
This included the introduction of French cuisine techniques and foods such as jelly and custard, which still remain a classic flavour combo to this day. Beef Wellington also becomes popular during this time, named after the Duke of Wellington following his victory at Waterloo in 1850.
I was going to say Trafalgar, but that wasn't Wellington. Jesus. Wait. What was his name? Oh God. Horatio Nelson. I don't know how I blanked on that name. I got
Wellington
confused.
Also becomes popular during this time, named after the Duke of Wellington following his victory at Waterloo in 1815. This luxurious dish is a prime example of how British cuisine began to incorporate elements of French cooking, reflecting the opulence of the time. Yorkshire pudding also made its debut.
So good.
In this period. Originally served as a first course to fill up diners before the main meat dish, it's made from a simple batter of eggs, flour and milk. It became a beloved part of the British Sunday roast, a meal that remains at the heart of British family life
with
to
some
this
gravy
day.
on it. Ooh.
The Victorian era also popularised fish and chips.
A bite of a Sunday roast with some mashed potatoes and a Yorkshire pudding. I guess I know them as popovers, but Yorkshire pudding with some gravy, I don't know if I can think of anything better. Maybe fish and chips.
Originally brought in by Jewish immigrants, it becomes a working class staple, and by the mid-19th century, the combination of fried fish and potatoes was both cheap and filling, making it an instant hit. This dish remains a symbol of British food. Shepherd's pie, with its origins in the late 18th century, became a comfort dish and was also pretty handy for using up whatever leftover roast meat you had. It's essentially a minced meat pie topped with mashed potatoes and baked to a golden perfection. A dish that represents the resourcefulness of British cooking during times of scarcity. And we also get the Scotch egg during the Georgian era,
Never had it.
around 1738. It's invented as a portable snack for travellers. This hearty snack became a popular item and its influence continues to the present day.
What is around the Scotch egg? It doesn't look just like an egg fried. So what is this part here?
Eton mess is
that like the beef Wellington mushroom mix?
also a dessert born in the 19th century at Eton College, which combines strawberry, meringue and whipped cream into a delightfully messy treat that became synonymous with British summer. Now we get to something quite big. Tea. Tea is Britain's liquid pride. When the government slashed tea taxes, it was like a national tea party. From duchesses to dock workers, everyone was sipping the steep delight.
I hear some British people have like 6 cups a day on average or something, which to each their own, but that's a lot of tea.
Nothing like a hot cup of colonial conquest to brighten your afternoon.
Maybe it's
tea
I'm
is
exaggerating.
still an iconic thing in British culture. Not everyone drinks it nowadays, but everyone's got a plug-in kettle, which the National Electric Grid has to compensate for at specific times in the day due to everyone switching it on and making a nice cuppa. Shortly after, canned food bursts onto the scene, changing the British plate forever. Quality optional, convenience though mandatory. Suddenly, dinner was just a can opener away, and with this came one of the most insulted dishes in British culture: baked beans. Now, I've already covered this in a cheeky little short, but one of the most hated and bizarre British breakfast staples has a very interesting origin story. There is a potential twisted story that might fill you with shame or anger, because the ever so British baked bean was reportedly invented by an American and just marketed
American food confirmed
to us Brits.
I'm joking. Okay.
Reportedly invented by an American and just marketed to us Brits. It's believed baked beans were first canned around the 1860s, but it was the Pennsylvania-based H.G. Heinz Company, founded by Henry Heinz, that started mass production of tin baked beans in 1895. The company started producing the cans in Pittsburgh, but became a British favourite. As we get closer to modern day, British cuisine evolved from a melee of medieval meats to a structured symphony of starters, mains and desserts, each era layering its own unique flavours into the hearty, sprawling banquet that is British food history. The phrase "Brits still eat like Germans are flying overhead" was mentioned earlier, and a lot of what happened to British eating habits during this period is where I think most people are stuck in their ways. World War I brought rationing, with sugar, meat and butter becoming more precious than a sunny day in London. Victory gardens popped up, and people were encouraged to plant and grow their own food, which worked at the time because, unlike today, more people had gardens. The years between the World Wars provided a brief respite, allowing British cuisine to recover slightly. However, the economic difficulties of the 20s and the 30s meant that many of the lessons in frugality and self-sufficiency from World War I were still retained.
Okay, so the World War I rationing, and then the economic downturn of the interwar years, and then rationing in World War II probably cemented it into the palates of the Brits that maybe one of those three might not have done and stuck around. And it makes sense. I mean, a lot of the times we like there are a lot of foods as you grow older that you didn't like, but as you try them more and more, you get used to and you develop a taste for it. You know, taste doesn't have to be directly linked to quality of ingredients. You know?
Frugality and self-sufficiency from World War I was still retained. And while Hitler was popping stimulants and invading Europe, World War II took culinary austerity to new heights, or lows, depending on your taste buds. During World War II, rationing became even more severe. Walton pie, a vegetable pie with literally whatever is available at the time, became a staple, and the refrigerated ships previously used to transport imported goods were now being used for the war effort, so British people got used to making whatever they could with whatever they could get their hands on. Mock banana, which is a dessert made of boiled and mashed parsnips mixed with sugar and a bit of banana essence, was one such inventive creation. The jellied eel, however, rose to infamy.
Oh Lord, what is a parsnip? All right. So it's like the similar between sweet potato and potato. You have carrots and parsnips. Is that oversimplification there?
While the British...
Yeah, this, I say, all the time I say I'd try pretty much everything, right? Anything. Except maybe some insects or super dangerous food like puffer fish. I'm sure I'd be like, I'm good. So, the problem I have with jellied eels, okay, is that eel is already it's a strange food to me. But then you put it in a form that makes it exponentially stranger. And so an eel, like what's in this jellied eel, but, grilled and with some nice spices and some mashed potatoes or something, maybe it's great. But you add it to the jellied, and then maybe it's good.
Especially Londoners had been eating eel for centuries at this point. It became particularly associated with wartime austerity. Now, to an outsider...
I would love to know, what is the purpose of the jellying? Is it to preserve it? Is it for flavor? I don't know.
Jellied eels isn't something most Brits eat to this day. In fact, a lot of us have never had it. Myself included. I won't be trying it because I know it's going to be gross. And to this day, it's only really eaten in a small part of East London.
Aggressive.
As we move past the wars, welcome to the kitchens of post-war Britain, where the menu was as grey as the sky. A time where belts were tightened more than a boomer's tipping purse, British food faced a flavour famine that would make even Oliver Twist reconsider asking for more. Wartime rationing lingered like that one party guest who just won't leave, stretching into the 1950s and turning every meal into a masterclass in culinary creativity, where the secret ingredient was usually depression. But then, like a plot twist in a kitchen soap opera, the 60s rolled around, bringing the thrilling advent of convenience. Fish fingers, first marketed in the UK by Birdseye in 1955, became a British classic. These culinary liberators weren't just easy...
Do you like fish sticks? Okay. So, what... Britain wasn't the only one that had to ration. So what are the German, the Italian, the French ration food traditions that stuck around? Or did they not stick around? And if they didn't, I have another question. Why not? So,
on the clock.
It's not like this reason for rationing is unique to Britain,
They became a British classic. These culinary liberators weren't just easy on the clock, they were symbols of modernity. Why spend hours cooking a meal when you could make it magically materialise from the mystical realms of the freezer aisle? The 1950s also saw the rise of Toad in the Hole, which despite its odd name, became a beloved comfort food for post-war families. Sausages baked in a Yorkshire pudding batter with a bit of gravy. What's not to love?
Sounds delicious.
Another post-war favourite that emerged during this time was Bubble and Squeak. This dish, made from leftover vegetables, especially potatoes and cabbage, became a go-to meal for frugal families looking to stretch their food supplies. And now we move on to something that I
Bubble and Squeak sounds so British. I've heard of that before, but
think improved
obviously
Britain's
never tried
food
it
forever. And I'm talking, of course. Now we move on to something that I think improved Britain's food forever. And I'm talking, of course, about immigration. Post-1945, the influx of immigrants from the Caribbean, India and Pakistan introduced new spices and culinary techniques, leading to the integration of dishes such as curry, which has become a British staple.
See, even if you put in curry, I know this is obviously a personal opinion, but Indian food, a little overrated. I'm sorry, okay? I haven't had enough to be an expert on it. It's good, but there are other British dishes that I think are tastier than Indian food. I'm not just saying this to be different, and Call me weird, but
of dishes such as curry, which has become a British staple. Immigrants that were unable to get hold of ingredients they were used to from their homelands started using alternatives that they could find in British shops and supermarkets, creating an entirely new subgenre of their homeland cuisine, usually changed and catered to the British palate. Hundreds of dishes are invented during this time,
like American
as
Chinese
part of
food.
the British cuisine culture, and these dishes remain unique to this day. Just look at what we call a Chinese. It will differ massively from what's available in other Chinese restaurants across the globe. The popularisation of chicken tikka masala, an adaptation of an Indian dish tailored to British taste, symbolises the fusion of cultures in modern British cuisine. Curry became the new national comfort food, with chicken tikka masala leading the charge as our new national dish, because nothing says British like spicing up an Indian dish until it's almost unrecognisable.
I don't even know why I'm trying to think of an...
Britain now has a plethora of curry houses, and going to one is still a national pastime. Getting drunk on clean Asian lager...
Yeah, so when I think of Indian food, I think of, you know, curry, chicken with rice. I think of naan bread, and I think of samosas. All of which are great. I don't want you to think I don't like those foods. It's just that if you were to offer me that, or offer me of the same quality a Sunday roast or a fish and chips, I feel like 9 out of 10 times I'm going to choose the latter.
Ordering way too many poppadoms and naan and being incredibly rude and annoying to the curry house waiters has been an integral part of the British experience since the 1970s. As we enter modern British cuisine, gone are the dreary days of boiled beef and bland veggies.
Idiot sandwich.
We've entered the golden era of British cuisine now, where culinary wizards are casting delicious spells left and right. Leading the charge in this delicious revolution are celebrity chefs, who during the late 90s and early 2000s become household names.
Gordon.
You've got angry
Jamie
Gordon
Oliver.
Ramsay, sad and whiny Jamie Oliver, sexy and illustrious Nigella Lawson, and of course there's Heston Blumenthal, the mad scientist of modern cuisine, who's more likely to use a periodic table than an actual one to dine on. Chef after chef, the culinary cred of the UK slowly starts to get better. Of modern cuisine, who's more likely to use a periodic table than an actual one.
I think making food a science and trying to make it as interesting as you can is great. Sometimes I just want a normal plate of food, though.
To dine on. Chef after chef, the culinary cred of the UK slowly starts to get better. And the revolution doesn't stop at fancy dining either. The humble British pub has had a makeover too, thanks to the gastropub movement, marrying pints with posh nosh to transform the pub grub scene. Bangers and mash, which is a simple dish of sausages and mashed potatoes, once a staple of the working class, now graces the menu of high-end gastropubs across the country. British chefs start geeking out with things like sous vide machines, turning traditional stews into gorgeous gastronomic galaxies.
One of the reasons I'm a little hesitant on like super nice food, and if it's made great, the heat of the food that I'm about to eat is so important to me. It's like the most important flavor for dishes that are supposed to be eaten hot is for them to be hot. You can give me the most delicious food ever, but it's like room temperature, or a much lower dish, but it's piping hot. Am I crazy?
Imagine your nan's Sunday roast, but deconstructed into a taco. Somewhere in London, you're going to find it. And that's the sort of thing that brings us into modern day. Certain things in the latter half of the 20th century start to get popular in British households. Sticky toffee pudding, Eton mess, and a lemon drizzle cake all become familiar to the working class and rise to fame as a popular choice for those with a sweet tooth. And there you have it. British cuisine has shed its stiff upper lip to embrace a kaleidoscope of flavours from around the world. From the science lab to the pub, the UK's food scene is not just catching up, it's sometimes leading the charge. We've got a bunch of Michelin-star restaurants here in the UK, proving that when it comes to cuisine, Britain is anything but boring. Sure, the average state of most UK towns and cities is still going to be reduced to curry and kebab houses, Chinese takeaways, and thousands of pretty bad pizza and burger joints, but when considering how far we've come, it's not exactly the worst in the world. So as we wrap up our culinary voyage across the British Isles, we've feasted on not just food, but on stories. A veritable buffet of history, culture, and mouth-watering innovation. From Roman grapes to Victorian gruel, British cuisine has weathered invasions and industrial revolutions, each era sprinkling its own bit of spice on the collective culinary pot.
Yeah, I'm convinced that some people are just so slaved to the culinary stereotypes that you can give them a awful Italian dish that was made with zero care, and then give them an English dish that was made perfectly and is delicious, and they'll still be like, English food, obviously that's worse, this is better. And I think people are slaves to stereotypes a lot and reinforce them. But if you put British cuisine up against every other country's cuisine, and all of it, other countries and British cuisine, is made very well, then British is in my top 5. All right? I'm not just saying that to be different.
This isn't just food, it's history on a plate. So the next time your stomach rumbles, why not let British flavours answer the call? From the humble Cornish pasty to the splendour of a simple Scotch egg, there is a dish ready to challenge every preconception.
Great video. I'd love to know what's surrounding the Scotch egg. Is that a meat or just a bread-like thing? I don't know. I would like the yolk a little more runny, but I know that's got to be difficult to cook and know if it's runny when you're cooking it inside something else. Wait, you must cook the egg first and then recook it. Because how would it keep the shape? I don't know. Love you all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. What are your opinions? Are my opinions awful? You won't hurt my feelings? Let me know. And hope everyone's doing well, and I hope to see you guys next time. We'll keep on learning together. Bye, guys.